In today's video, I want to focus on feelings. I want to break down how to identify your feelings, why it's important to identify your feelings, how to feel your feelings, and how to regulate them. So I want to start off with talking about why it is important to talk about feelings, okay? And I know that the society that most of us live in is just like, what? Feelings? Ew, so unimportant. Can we move on to the logical things, to the whatever things? And let me point out what I found out in my lifespan so far is that no matter what your desire is, no matter what your action is, it is motivated by a feeling, whether you know it or not. So the desires that you have, I don't know, maybe you want a car, maybe you want a house, maybe you want a spouse, whatever it is, my interpretation is that what we ultimately want under that desire is connected to a need, is connected to a feeling. So maybe in wanting a partner, you want to create connection. Or if your desire is to own a house, maybe you want safety and security. You want to feel empowered. I believe that by taking ourselves and our feelings and our emotions seriously, we enter an inner compass that helps us move through life. And by disconnecting from it, we become more prone to be controlled, manipulated, go towards outside authorities and opinions in order to get the information that we already have. And I think society is really scared of emotions and feelings. And it is a problem. I think that we live in a society where we put a lot of focus on the logical mind. And that is only half of the story. Like, yeah, sure, it's great to be logical and to think and rationalize and not be impulsive, but it is not okay to cut off like half of your navigational system. What I think is not okay is to think that our emotional world is somehow unimportant, because it is actually what is driving most people's behavior and actions. So that is not logical to me. So it's really important to be able to identify your feelings in order to access this inner compass, this inner power that you already have and you're born with. And I think it's a crucial component and a skill that can be learned in regards to your own empowerment. And not only that, it also translates into how you relate to others. And that translates to the community that you live in, the society that you live in. So before we get started, I just want to point out, I am not a psychologist. I am not a therapist. However, I have dedicated a large part of my life to self-growth, self-empowerment. And I want to share what I've learned and hopefully have this conversation create some kind of a positive influence, change, awareness, any of that. I'll take any of that. And I also want to say that if you are struggling in any kind of way, please seek help. Sometimes we just need to ask for help, and there's no shame in that. So let me start off with saying that feelings are not evil. In fact, it is your superpower. And by the way, I'm going to use the word emotions and feelings interchangeably, but there is a slight difference. From my understanding so far, emotions it's an energy in motion that goes through our body. And then the feeling is the interpretation that we give the sensation of our body. So when we are tuned into ourselves, our body actually gives us signals. So it is our job to take these sensations of our body seriously and to interpret them, them. And maybe there are people out there who are like, I just don't have emotions. I don't feel very much. I think that is bullshit, because when you think of babies, when you think of toddlers, what I think is more true is that we come and we are born with this inner compass and we express our emotions without shame. We cry when we're hungry when we're babies, okay? We cry when we need our diapers changed, whatever it is. I believe that society shames these expressions out of us. And yeah, sure, I mean, we can't walk around like toddlers not being able to process our emotions. That is what emotional maturity is. But what is also not healthy, what I see in the world, is to either stuff our emotions or to not be able to be friends with your emotions and not be able to express them in a healthy way. Because I think being able to express your emotions in a healthy way is one of the most powerful things that you can do. So when we talk about controlling your emotions and feelings, it's never about like controlling what comes up. It's about controlling how it comes out. So I grew up in a society where a lot of emotions were not allowed. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about, the social conditioning. So for instance, sadness was really not welcome, but also happiness was not okay. There's actually even a saying in my society that says, don't be too happy because sorrow will follow. So obviously this led to a lot of problems like anxiety and depression, even though I didn't even know how to name those things in the moment. But as a result, I would run away from my feelings, just like really running away from my problems and from feeling my feelings. And I think this is a societal problem right now, which is people tend to numb themselves through alcohol, through different kinds of addictions, so that they don't have to feel their feelings. That is how powerful feelings are, because even if you do stuff them under the surface, they're never really resolved. So they do silently underneath drive your actions. So you can't avoid them. Might as well just like learn to be friends with them and just work with them, because they're pointing you towards what is meant for you and what is not meant for you, what feels good, what doesn't feel good. So knowing how to translate those signals is a very, very powerful way to move through life. So I want to share with you my story of how I came about being able to identify my feelings. And trust me, it was a long journey, but I want to share it just to give you motivation that if I was able to do it, so can you. I was one of those people that tried really, really hard to run away from her feelings. I just didn't want to feel them. I didn't want to feel uncomfortable. I didn't want to feel pain. And there was just a lot of pain under the surface until it caught up with me, and I just had no other way of going about it than to start therapy. But on top of therapy, at the same time, I joined an acting class. And in this acting class, in the beginning of the class, what we would do is we would do an exercise called the relaxation exercise. So the point of this exercise was to get into touch with your feelings so that you could let out the emotions that were stored in your body, so that you can relax your instrument, which is the body, and you could get in touch with your full emotional range so that you could use it with whatever character that you're portraying. So there was like 15 of us in the class, and we would all sit in a single chair, and there was like rows and we were spread out so we could like move our limbs. And the idea was that we would like move parts of our body in a way that releases emotion. Because the idea is that your body, your muscles, your tissues, they all hold on to the emotional memories that are stored that were not released energetically. So they're just stored there. And by moving and sensing into the tension of your body, you get a chance to release them. And you had 4 choices as to how you feel. There was happy, sad, angry, scared. And so the acting coach would be like walking around each chair slowly. And from the corner of my eye, I saw her approaching. And I was so disconnected from my internal world. I didn't know which one of these 4 emotions I was feeling. So she comes over to me and she approaches me and she's like, "So, how are you feeling?" So the emotion that I chose was anger, because that was the emotion that I felt the most comfortable with. So I told her I was angry. And being the wise woman that she is, she was like, "I don't think so. You're not angry." So she saw the tension in my right shoulder and she told me to put a hand on my right shoulder. And as I did, I started crying. This surprised me because I was like, what the hell is happening? By stimulating the place where the tension was, I was able to release the emotions that were stuck in that part of my body. And so I was crying, and she's like, so what is the emotion that you're feeling? And I was like, sadness? And she's like, yeah. And then it took me years of practicing this and to get into touch with my feelings in order to get good at it and to build self-trust. So I want my story to encourage you and show you that it's like where I started from was very close to zero emotional awareness, but I got there, and so can you. And you don't need to get into an acting class in order to do that. If you have the drive, you can totally build the awareness just through practicing, or you can, talk to a professional or join a group or whatever you feel is right for you in order to get into touch with your inner world. This is just a skill, and with practice, you can learn. Because people who are in touch with their internal world and they know how to work with them are very powerful people. These people are very hard to control because they know that they can trust themselves and they don't have to look into the outside world for direction. You can trust your inner compass. So to help you identify your own feelings, here is a feeling wheel that names the core emotions in the middle, and then it gets more nuanced as it grows to the outside. So here's the thing with identifying emotion. For instance, let's say you're sitting on a bus and then someone comes and sits very close to you and you get this really weird feeling about them. Trust it. Don't try to rationalize it, okay? Your body knows best and it knows first. The logical mind will catch up and you can rationalize it later. But if you do get a weird feeling from someone, you're probably right. So I want you to be able to take your feelings seriously. However, sometimes your feelings will lie to you because they're trying to protect you. So for instance, when I gave you the example of someone sitting next to you and you have the weird vibes, probably trust that, okay? In my case, that turns out to be right 10 out of 10 times. You can call it intuition, whatever you want to call it. But sometimes the amygdala in our brain, that center responsible for fear, is just on high alert, and it tries to keep you safe. And it prevents you from doing things that might be uncomfortable in the moment, but are better for you in the future. Does that make sense? So now I want to talk about how to feel your feelings, because it's such a beautiful, beautiful thing. I believe that humans have the gift of feeling. And, even though it may be yucky to feel some things, it's still just life coming through us, and it should be honored. So here's what I learned about feeling your feelings. Apparently, and there's studies about this, your feelings, when you allow them to flow through you, they only last 90 seconds. So that's a minute and a half. Sounds pretty doable, right? Except for grief, which actually lasts longer and comes back and comes back and comes back. Yeah, grief is a toughie. So from my understanding of how to feel your feelings is that you just tune it into your body and you just let that stuff pass through your system. Let's say a thought or an event comes up and it produces some kind of a feeling inside you. You can choose to process that at that time, or there is also the option, if you don't have the time, let's say you're at work and what is being called for is that you express it through crying, for instance. But crying in an office full of your colleagues is not socially acceptable. So what you can choose is to come back to that moment at a later time. So for instance, when you come home, instead of drinking that glass of wine or turning on the TV and binging, you sit down with yourself in silence and you choose to process the feeling that came up that day. And you just turn into your body and you sense which part of your body, where you feel it in your body. Is there tension? Is there heat? And you just tune into your body, because your body and your emotions are connected. Your thoughts are connected. Everything is connected. Don't even get me started. And you just sit with that. And like I said, for 90 seconds, if you don't feed it with stories, because stories will keep you in an endless loop. It will just like not pass through you. So try to disconnect from the story about the event or the person or whatever is upsetting you. I'm assuming you're not sitting down with good feelings, although you might, because I have a hard time feeling happiness and joy still because it was not encouraged. So I still have problems feeling some of those feelings. So like if I have a lot of joy, I don't know what to do with it. So I'm still learning myself. But you sit down with your emotions and you just let it pass. You let it rise. You don't attach a story to it. You're just like, I'm noticing this and this and this in my body. Okay. And then from my experience, it will subside. You should not try to subside it. It will just do it on its own. And it might take longer. And you might have to do a few of these sessions. But I guarantee you that if you do honor your feelings and you pay attention to them and you do not feed them with stories, then there will be a release, which is basically what we want. If we have some kind of resistance or we don't allow ourselves to process it, we don't come back to it, we just try to forget about it, it will get stuck in our bodies. There's a great book that I have come across on my healing journey by Peter Levine called Waking the Tiger. And he basically talks about, you know how like animals, when they encounter stress, afterwards they like shake? That's them releasing that energy out of their body. And then they just move on. But we as humans are not encouraged to process our emotions right there and then, right? Maybe we're in a situation where we cannot express fear or anger or any of these emotions that are deemed as negative. And the next thing I want to talk about is the ability to regulate your emotions. I think this stuff should be taught in schools, but for some reason it's not. A lot of us adults really miss this crucial skill of being able to regulate our emotions, and it does cause a lot of damage to society. So I just want to point out some ways that you can regulate your emotions in healthy ways. So that might be gardening, arranging flowers, meditating, physical exercise, journaling, dancing, yoga, somatic exercise. So it's up to you to find out what really helps. And I want to point out that regulating emotions doesn't mean that you don't feel dysregulated, okay? It doesn't mean that like we're just going to be like Zen. That's not the point. The point is that we are aware of when our nervous system gets dysregulated, and we learn the steps that we need to do in order to take care of ourselves, not to do something stupid, okay? Basically, because if we're dysregulated, we're in this like, our amygdala is just going crazy. And, you know, maybe there's like an additional stimulus that is just like way over the threshold of what we can do. I believe that is when very damaging things can happen. So for you to be able to determine whether you are dysregulated and what you can do about it is, again, a superpower. And the last point that I want to make is it is so crucial to be able to express your feelings in healthy ways. And I'm sad to say that I was one of those people that did not know how to express her anger in healthy ways. And I did do a lot of damage. And that is why I'm sharing my experience, my stories, and I want to talk about these topics because I think they could be very helpful for others who might be in the same situation. And maybe in this case, you also don't know how to express your anger in healthy ways and you just like let it out on someone you love, which is what happened to me. But I eventually learned how to process that and how to take care of myself in order not to create damage to myself or others. And so one of the tips that truly helped me when I am angry and I have a need to like scream or let it out is humming. Okay? Sounds crazy, but try humming. Next time you're pissed off at your spouse or whoever it might be, try to hum for like, I don't know, 5-10 minutes and see the change. And if you want to come back to this video and tell me if it helped, great. So being able to identify your own feelings is actually creating a connection and safety and trust within yourself. Second of all, being able to express your emotions in a healthy way leads to connection with others. If you have a conflict, if you show up in a vulnerable way where you express your emotions, your feelings, and your needs to the other person, the likelihood of your needs getting met is much higher than if you would go into that argument and conflict with blame or any of these ways that leads to disconnection. And I have seen transformation happen in these kinds of discussions so often. And that is why I'm dedicating this channel towards empowerment, towards learning about yourself, towards learning about communication, because I think it is crucial to be able to have discussions, especially with people that don't share our opinions or values, in a respectful way. And it is such a beautiful thing. I've seen it in small groups. I've seen it in like circles that I have attended, and I know that it is possible. And that is also why I am such an advocate for nonviolent communication. I believe that that is the number one thing that society needs right now. So if this video resonated with you, please give me a like. I would love if you commented. Maybe you can share some of your experience, because it really helps this channel and these videos to get visibility. And if you want to support me and my channel, then please subscribe for more videos like these.